Grand rising and good evening, warriors all over the world. Excited to be with you guys on this amazing April 4th, 2024. What I want to remind you is this is the last April 4th, 2024 you're ever going to have. And I'm excited to be on here with one of my best friends, mentors, and coaches, Matt from Psycosmos. We're going to be breaking down today just many different things. There's no plan to these conversations. We're just going to talk through our spiritual awakening, the things that we're going through. I would like to dive into the eclipse coming up April 8th. And where we left off last time was the sacred secretion process. I just remembered that. So I left people on a cliffhanger out there, and it's something that I've been practicing. And ironically, mine is at 12 o'clock on April 8th, which is such a beautiful, beautiful journey to be on. So first of all, Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, my friend. How are you doing?
Awesome. Yes. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I want to show you guys, if you guys have not checked out, it has been changing people's lives within our academy. Check out Psycosmos so you can get it on Amazon, or just look up Psycho. Where's the best place to get this book?
BookBaby or Amazon is fine. Yeah. Actually, I recommend anybody who has read the book or gotten the book, please leave us a review. Let us know what you guys were thinking about it too.
Absolutely. We love this information needs to be out to the world. What's beautiful about it is I love the fact that it's deep research, guys. Deep research from the beginning of humanity to Aquarius, where we're at right now, which is super powerful. And that's what I want to start out with today and talk about and then we'll back into sacred secretion and something that you have taught me over the past year. And it's all I can say from practical application. My life has radically transformed. I mean, radically transformed. So let's talk about the age of Aquarius. A lot of people, bring that up. Like, what is the age of Aquarius? What does it mean for us? And for me, macroeconomically, it matches up to cryptocurrency and the quantum financial system and all these things that are happening. So for those who are just learning about this type of stuff, spirituality, astrology, all these different things, what is the age of Aquarius?
Yeah, great question. So astrologically speaking, the age of Aquarius is something called the precession of the equinox, and different cultures had different names for it. Plato called it the Platonic years or the Platonic cycle. Back in the Greco-Roman times, you have the Ayurvedic people, or the Vedas of India, and they called it the Yuga cycle. But basically, it was this fundamental belief that everything is basically layered in our reality. So just as kind of a quick example, you have a body, you have cells in your body, you have the muscles, the skeletal structure, the skin, and then you're a person in a house, in a little area like a town, and then in a state, and then in a country, in a continent, on the world, in the universe, like in the everything is essentially layered.
Yes.
So what they did was they made a lot of observations, and there's a guy named Graham Hancock. He wrote a book, Fingerprints of the Gods, I believe, where they did like rock testing, like what do you call it, carbon dating of sorts on the Great Sphinx of Egypt. They found that went back maybe about 12,000 years, which is a lot further back than a lot of people believe. Well, 12,000 years ago, we were in what was called like the age of Leo. We were going from the age of Virgo into the age of Leo. And the Sphinx itself is like a woman's face on a lion's body. So they believe that it's possible that this was made from this shift, because we often see these stories and a lot of these different mythologies that pop up between shifts of ages. So for example, another example, when we went from the age of Taurus into the age of Aries, which would have been about 4,000 years ago, there were all these stories about Mithras or Mithra, which was this kind of like curly-haired warrior deity that was slaying a bull. And this is where we get a lot of the running of the bulls, or the slaying of the bulls, or the matadors. A lot of these things kind of propped up, really like 3,500 years ago, which is very, very old when you really think about it from our perspective. But from the astrological perspective, this cycle roughly is about 24,000 years. So it shifts a sign every roughly 2,000 to 2,400 years, somewhere in that kind of range. Well, what we've done is we've done a lot of calculations, and when you take where we were 2,000 years ago, where we shifted from the age of Aries into the age of Pisces, this is called the 0 point. And this is also why we use this as year 0. And this is also why Jesus was born around this time, because you have to think about it. I mean, think about it biblically. They knew that there was a Messiah coming. They knew why do you have 3 kings traveling, looking up at a star and saying, we got to go that way and bring a bunch of like gold and frankincense and myrrh.
But don't they tell you astrology's evil though?
Oh yeah, right.
Ironic, right?
They tell you astrology's evil, and yet it's littered in every single form of scripture or mythology or spirituality in all the major parts of the world, including in the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible talks about eclipses. The Bible it doesn't use the word eclipse because that was more of a Greek term that came a little bit later. But it talks about the sun and the moon lining up, and the sun will hide behind the moon, and the moon will give its it will lose its light. There's like passages in the Bible. I actually did a workshop with one of my good buddies, Gnostic Pope, and we talked about this as far as the eclipse goes. So it's I'll be kind of refreshing on a lot of those details. But in the Bible, when even if you want to just take the New Testament story of the 3 kings, why are there 3 kings at this specific moment in time where Jesus is born as a baby? Why are there 3 kings that said, you know what, pack up the camels, we're going to go wandering the desert, and we're going to go follow this star, and we're going to look for this baby that's being born in a manger?
Wow.
Jesus wasn't born in a castle,
right?
You know, like he wasn't born as nobility. Why are there 3 kings just wandering the desert with a bunch of stuff for this baby? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And you have to think, you know, they were receiving messages. They knew that the Savior was coming to be born.
Yes.
So they followed the Eastern Star. I believe it was the star Sirius, or it was one of those stars. And they go through the desert, and they find this child, which they claim was the Messiah. And so who's there witnessing? You know, a lot of the time in nativity scenes today, because we've kind of muddled it a little bit, they'll have like a donkey there. But I'm pretty sure the original translations, the Greek translations, where it was a lamb and a bull, were bearing witness to the birth of the Messiah. Well, the lamb is the age of Aries, and the bull was the age of Taurus, the 2 ages that preceded by about 4,000 years before this. And now, why is this important? Why are they using these analogies to describe this? It's because there was a very deeply held belief, even back 4,000 years before Jesus was born, where we had the flood of Noah, we had the Epic of Gilgamesh. These are very synonymous stories in a lot of ways. There is also an Ayurvedic Indian story that is very similar to the flood of Noah. So you have all these stories propping up all around this time, and we are able to geologically, we have discovered that yes, there is actually evidence of a flood that happened about 6,000 years ago from today. So right at this age of Taurus, and the way that you determine this is you see what's coming up over the eastern horizon on March 21st. March 21st was generally the first day of the new year. Okay. So whatever sign is coming up over that horizon was the sign that they would deem as that age. So today it's kind of like dipping from Pisces into Aquarius.
Got it.
And so as we're walking through time, you have all these bull gods and bull deities, and Moses comes down from the mountain. They're worshiping a golden calf. Why are they doing all these things? Well, it's because at that point in time, you have the Brahman bull of the Ayurvedic people. You have the Nordic stories of a bull in the sky that licked the ice of the universe. The universe was a giant frozen ice block, and it licks the ice block into the waters of creation. And you have all these stories, Mesopotamians, all these stories of these bull deities 6,000 to 4,000 years ago. This is because of the astrology, because every single culture, if you study all these different forms of astrology, they see that constellation as a bull. The Chinese see it as a bull. The Indians saw it as a bull. The Greco-Romans saw it as a bull. The Middle Easterners saw it as a bull. So now all these people are worshiping a bull. You have the concept of Moloch, which is that this like evil thing that the people are, worshiping by throwing their children into a fire. All of these things propped up around this time. So it's like the astrology is way more deeply rooted than people even believe, because otherwise you have to start asking the logical questions of, you have to really question the origin of where this stuff comes from. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Well, if Moses is coming down with the 10 commandments and he's looking and he's like, yo, why are these people worshiping a golden bull? Why are they worshiping a golden calf? You have to ask yourself, yeah, why was it a calf? Why, like, what was it wasn't like there was a sigil of Satan that was just sitting there. That wasn't even a concept. Satan wasn't even a formulated idea back at this time period.
Yeah.
This was the version. It was idolatry. This was the version of Satan that we would understand today, or the devil, or the trickster, or whatever. This was that variation back in the day, because they didn't have it at that time. It doesn't mean it didn't exist. It just wasn't logically thought through. So anyway, back to, real quick, just to wrap it up, what is the age of Aquarius? Well, now we're moving from Pisces into Aquarius. Pisces rules over a lot of maternal healing, a lot of like feminine healing, but it also has deception involved in it. It's very duplicitous. It's a very dual related sign. It's a mutable water sign, which means that it's very dual. So you have all these exposures from the spiritual side, almost like the Holy Spirit has been guiding all of these uncoverings all throughout the last 2,000 or so years. But now we're stepping into the age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is the waters above flowing down to the waters below. Wow. In the human body, Aquarius represents the spinal column, and it also represents the two legs, the two shins, the two pillars, Joachim and Boaz. The two pillars of all of creation, of all duality, that are standing tall and firm. So we're moving into an age of technology, structure, spirituality, and even some novelty. There's going to be a lot of new things. This is why we have this new age movement that's kind of popping up. And I'm a lot of people might even think that I'm new age, but I'm actually old age.
Yeah,
I'm going further beyond what the people thousands of years ago were really referencing and what they were really getting to. So
can I ask
you? I'll say, I just want to say one more thing. That 0 point between Pisces and the age of Aries going into the age of Pisces. This is why those kings and those wise council people and the sages and all these highly intelligent, highly spiritual people knew someone was coming. There was an alignment of the planets. There was an alignment of the energies, and this portal opened up. And then who comes around year 0? Jesus Christ. Beautiful. So that's why that's such a big deal, by the way, because of that shift.
I just think it's so interesting too, because like you said, people call you New Age, but it seems like when people go deep into history, they call them New Age because they're bringing forth true ancient knowledge of how it really, like when they were and you can correct me on this, but as they were looking for the North Star, they lost the North Star, right? They lost the North Star, and then they brought it was camels to drink in the water, and then they saw the North Star in the reflection in the water, right? To me, that represents the experience that I've been going through over the last year. Is instead of looking outside of myself to find myself, I started to look in the reflection, which I saw the star within me. So they lost the star in the sky, and then they bring their camels to water to hydrate them, and they look in the water and they see the star in their reflection.
That's right. Beautiful analogy. That's exactly what passages like that are to emphasize. It's the looking within, the internal reflections. And what is a reflection in the water if not an inversion of what you're seeing above, right? Or on the horizon. When you look over that mountain landscape and you see the water, or you see the sun coming up over the horizon, you see it reflected in the water, and it's an inverted reflection. What it means is flip the way you're seeing things, flip the way you're thinking. It might bring you to a deeper conclusion.
As so above, so below.
So below, exactly.
That's the beauty in what I've really embodied through reading Psycosmos and working with you and becoming dear friends. It's like really understanding that like all the things that I was taught as a child, and well, not even as a child, because I didn't really get exposed to God in a sense. Right before my suicide, I prayed right before my suicide, which was crazy, right? But I'd never prayed in my life, and I prayed right before to some God before I committed suicide. It was like, wow, that's interesting. And then when I wake up to this new reality. And 17 years later, as I dive deeper and deeper into this, I'm starting to gain a deeper understanding of self. And as I gain a deeper understanding of self, and I see myself, more people can see me. And when I was looking for others, nobody could find me. Right. So it's such an interesting, I keep using this, my new word, dichotomy, this new word, dichotomy. Okay. So I want to talk about, and then I want to end this with wrapping up with sacred secretion, but I do want to talk about, I know you guys did a workshop as well. And I want to talk about this eclipse coming up, because there's a lot of information out there, some good, some indifferent, a lot of fear tactics going on, just like Y2K 2012, the Mayan calendar ended, which I think that was a representation of death of the old, birth of the new. We're in Aquarius now. We got cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin halving. And to me, it's all one and the same. It's all one experiencing happening. Like consciousness is all experiencing itself in a big wave of energy. And now we got this big eclipse where people are panicking about the National Guard. I just want to share, I know you guys did a workshop on that, and you can share where that's available as well. But just your overarching view on the eclipse. I know what you've taught me to do, and some of the things I'm doing. I'll be fasting. My sacred secretion time starts at 12 o'clock. I'm not working that day. I'm completely disconnecting. Yep. I'm doing my videos the day before, no social media. And I do want to talk a little bit about that as well. I've been doing this detox for 13 days. It's been amazing, brother. But yeah, share with a little bit about your knowledge around the eclipse and your thoughts on it.
Sure. So eclipses are very powerful moments astrologically. If you're interested in learning more, we have a 4-hour recorded workshop. You can go to my website and you can purchase it, and you'll get the link for that. You can watch it. And I highly advise, if this is something that you're really, really worried about, I highly recommend go checking it out. But here's the thing. I'm going to start from the top, and then we're going to come full circle. Okay. The first thing everybody needs to know about an eclipse, screw the astrology stuff, screw all the events that are going on in the world. Eclipses are very powerful, especially a solar eclipse like this one. They're very powerful moments in time where you can receive energy from God, basically. In order to do that, you have to set your intentions and your mind right. It's not about manifestation. It's not about trying to do this or this or this and all these different practices and stuff. Whatever it feels best for you. But the last thing that you should be playing into is fear, uncertainty, self-doubt, anger, frustration, anything low vibes. Because what a lot of the socio-political people want to do right now is they want to lower everybody's frequency so that they don't receive these gifts. A solar eclipse where the sun and the moon can come together is basically very akin to the sacred secretion process in the body. You have the solar and the lunar aspects conjoining into a means of raising frequency and healing. So you have a lot of spiritual people who say solar eclipses are very powerful. Others say that they're very scary or what have you. All that matters is this: whatever mindset that you're going to have when you wake up on that April 8th is going to set a precedence for quite some time. And you want to hone in on ensuring that you are living to the best degree, that you are going through all of the healing that you need to do physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all the healing that you need to do with your desires. If your desires are not in the right place, there's a lot of different ways that you can hone in on this, but do not believe the fear mongering, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to remove you. Once you decide this is just an eclipse, it's not a big deal. Oh, I'm so scared because this and this and this is happening. CERN's turning on the Hadron Collider. Cicadas are coming out of the ground after 17 years. The National Guard's going to be deployed. The schools are shutting down. The NASA's firing 3 sound-related rockets towards it. There's a devil comet in the sky. Oh my God, we're all going to die. Once you start having these deeply rooted subconscious feelings and you're not working through them, you're already locking yourself out of the divine grace and love that God is going to be giving you during this time period. Now, with that being said, I'm going to come full circle because that's where I'm going to end. And I'm going to try to keep this short. An eclipse is where the sun and the moon align when they are specifically near what are called the north and south nodes in the sky. That's actually what creates an eclipse in the first place. The north and south nodes are very, very powerful, potent placements in astrology. To the Ayurvedic people of India, they have their own form of astrology called sidereal. They call them Rahu and Ketu. So what's going on with this eclipse is going to be extremely powerful, especially for people who have placements. If you know your big three, or if you know any of the other parts of your charts for the cardinal signs, which would be Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, and Libra. Now, the reason for this is because of just the way astrology works. But anyway, for Aries energy, which is where this eclipse is going to happen, there's going to be new forms of military activity, which is why they're releasing a movie 4 days after this eclipse called Civil War. That's not to scare people. Don't be scared, okay? But there, you are going to start seeing really interesting things prop up. And this is an election year, and there's a lot of confusion and muddled stuff going on behind the scenes now. And a lot of people feel it. A lot of people know it. Now, this is also very potently powerful energy for helping children. This is also why we're seeing like a lot of exposures. P. Diddy got raided for sex trafficking. There's a documentary about Nickelodeon that's come out recently. This has all been leading up to this. This is exposing things because Aries is a very, it's the first sign of the zodiac. So at least from our perspective, there's a lot more that goes into that. But basically, this is going to help a lot of children. But I've looked at the astrology. There's probably going to be a lot of chaos. Aries can also be pretty chaotic sometimes. So there could be a lot of chaos especially over the next 6-month period until we have the next eclipse, which is going to be in October.
Wow.
So my recommendation is you got to set your mind right, because Aries rules the top of the brain. You got to set your mind right. You got to be willing to be open to receiving positive information, positive gifts, manifestations, whatever. Clear yourself like a blank slate leading up. We're on April 4th right now. So you got 4 days. Clear yourself like a blank slate leading up to this, and then allow yourself to receive. You want to be clean. You want to be as pure as possible to be able to receive this. And so this is some of the things I'm going to recommend. You should, and this, none of this is nutritional or medical advice, but you should consider fasting or eating really light on the day of the eclipse. I would avoid eating cooked foods. If you are going to eat raw fruits and vegetables or something along those lines, I would avoid meat on that day because it's going to be very heavy. The reason for this is cosmic space radiation. There's going to be a big burst of energy that's going to hit the planet. And that energy, because of the focalization of like the different gravitational forces or magnetism or light or however you want to see it, it doesn't matter. It's your paradigm. It is a shift in energy. Yeah. So it is going to impact people on a different level than it normally would. There are probably going to be a lot of people who get headaches on that day. There are probably going to be a lot of people who have really high bouts of energy and then really low swings of energy. That's going to be like all over the place. I highly advise, if you can take that day off, take the day off. I highly advise, if you're going to go and see the eclipse in the path to totality, shower in the morning or take a bath in the morning, shower at night, take a bath at night. Actually, probably everybody should be doing that because, again, you want to be cleansed. You want to be clean through this whole process. This is a healing based off of the journey that you've had leading up to this point. Awesome. You still have 3 days. You still have 3 days. So go into it. And again, I'm just going to finalize it here because we can talk about some of the events that are kind of going around it, but I'm talking a lot here.
No, it's good.
I want to bring it full circle. The last thing that you should be doing is being scared. Eclipses are in the Bible. In fact, there's a lot of accounts, and we've lost a lot of this information, but prior to some of the books that I've read that are really old, 1800s or so, they talk about the history of the Bible and the days in which that Jesus died, and right around Easter time, right? So we just had Easter recently this past week. Well, there are accounts that say that Jesus died on a solar eclipse. It's literally a sacred secretion process, but astrologically, because as above, so below. Yeah. So that is literally what is happening right now. It's almost like we are going through a sacred secretion through this sign of Aries right now, which is the top of the head, the crown. And that is really crucial to understand. That's super important. And now a couple things that I'll just make a quick note of. Everybody's scared because CERN, the laboratory over in Europe, is turning on their Large Hadron Collider on that day. They're doing that to manipulate the energy. NASA is throwing rockets up there. They're doing that to manipulate the energy. The cicadas are coming out of their 17-year-long slumber. And if you don't know this, these are very specific cicadas. These aren't the cicadas that we get year round. They follow a 17-year process and pattern. The Asiatic countries, Japan, China, Korea, they are, and the islands, they're very big on this because they claim that when these cicadas come out, they vibrate at a much different frequency, and it often changes things in our world as human beings. So yes, there are going to be big changes. There are going to be big shifts. What side of the aisle do you want to be on? That's the real question. If you feel like, oh my God, I've been so sinful. Oh my God, God has left me. God hates me, and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, you're projecting that. God loves you.
God loves you.
There's literally nothing that God can't do. If you want to give yourself up to him at this point in time because you feel like you've lived a life of sin and debauchery, then do that. But the last thing that you need to do is feel fear. God does not want you to feel fear. God will take all that from you. Don't allow yourself to filter and process through all of the negative emotions and negative frequencies that you have right now. This is going to be a very powerfully transformative time.
Wow.
What side of the aisle do you want to be on?
Yeah.
Does
that go into the whole thing, a lot of very religious people, again, no judgment, a lot of religious people are like, the rapture's coming, Christ is coming down on a horse from the sky. It's like, it's a representation of consciousness shifting. It's like, if you're in a really low frequency or low energy or whatever you want to call it, depression, anxiety, you may go deeper into that. Or if you're been really working on yourself, you're going to feel a high level of energy. Like this year, and I've told you this, I felt this like really intense energy in my body. It's like almost like an uncomfortable, on the verge of anxiety almost, where it's like, and I've been able to control it through the practices, and I'll share something I've been doing for 13 days as well, which was worked phenomenal for me. Is that where all this comes in, where biblically people like the rapture, two people are in a field, one goes up, and if you're not a believer, and that's where the fear comes in, right? You're a sinner, you're not a believer. And I love what you said, because God loves us. God is with us all the time. Jesus Christ is with us all the time. So is that where that fear comes in of, the fear mongering, you're going to be in a field and, you're going to go shooting up the sky and your loved ones are going to stay down?
Great question. Okay. So there's a bunch of ways we can break this down, and I'm not going to go too long-winded on this. Rapture, Armageddon, apocalypse. All of these words have different meanings. First of all, rapture comes from the word reaping, which is a taking. And that is exactly what happened with Jesus. He was taken for all the sins of all humankind. Okay. So rapture means that, the apocalypse means the unveiling. Okay. So this is an unveiling period. This is not what people think it is. So the answer is yes, but it's not what people think it is. They already have the wrong paradigm, because and again, this isn't attacking anybody specifically, but there have been organizations which have tried to instill guilt and fear and a bunch of negative emotions into people for control, because they want people coming back and giving them money.
Sure.
So what this really represents is a consciousness shift. Everybody is leading up to this. Think about the last 5 years of our lives, really the last 7 years since the last eclipse that we had in 2017 in America, and how everybody has awakened. So many people, I shouldn't say everybody, so many people have awakened since then. There is a mass consciousness shift here. And when this consciousness shift occurs, there are going to be people who are left behind, because they don't want to live on the Isle of God, is the way I'll put it. And there will be people who want to just live in the world, and they want to be of the world, and they don't want to actually experience the spiritual aspects. The people who are, it's just an eclipse, nothing's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, what they're not recognizing is when people are putting that mentality out there, this is the rapture, this is the apocalypse, this is Armageddon. Guess what they're doing? They're creating it. Their minds and their mentality, it's already locked in now.
Yeah.
So it might not be the rapture of the Bible. It might not be one for one. It might not be this whole whatever. But the thing about solar eclipses is they oftentimes, in other cultures and past histories, there were human sacrifices that were done around these times. because there was a belief that God was asking for atonement. There was a belief that God was asking for the bad to be transformed into the good.
Got it.
And so that is what this solar eclipse is going to represent. It is transforming the bad and turning it into the good. Where do you want to be? You have free will. You have a choice. Where do you want to be in this whole paradigm shift that we're going to see here? There is going to be probably even a deeper awakening than what we've seen. Everybody who's been on the path of awakening is going to go deeper into that.
Yeah.
And everybody who is going against that is only going to stray further away from it.
Wow.
So if you want to see that as the segregation of some are taken and some are not, then sure. But the reality is, and again, this is not fear mongering. This should actually be really
exciting.
Exciting and happy time for people, because that's what it's going to be. Are there going to be people who die? There's always people who die.
True.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you with that. It's like, are there going to be mass casualties? I can't tell you that either. But what I can tell you is death is not a big deal if you're good with God and you know Jesus and you know, or Buddha or whatever it is that it means for you.
Yeah.
Whatever it means on your side of the aisle, whatever it means for your whole paradigm, your culture, anything like that. If you're good with God,
amen.
Death is just a stepping stone. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. So if you're really that scared, what does that tell you about you? What does that tell you about your consciousness? In your consciousness, if you're like, oh my God, I'm so afraid to die, I'm so afraid of the judgment. What are you really telling yourself? That's the question that I would ask. What are you afraid of? Because God is a very loving God, no matter what culture that you believe in. Yes. God is a very loving God. He's not something to be feared. He wants to love you. He wants to have a relationship with you. So if you're scared of him, I mean, what are you, you're afraid of yourself. What you're afraid of the mistakes that you made personally. And not working on yourself and not getting your shit together. It's like,
right. We always say work harder on yourself than just so we'll back into this in about the next 15 minutes to talk about the sacred secretion process, and just we'll tap into it and we'll go deeper as well as we continue this journey. And so for me, I had been going on this deep spiritual journey basically 17 years. And then when I left corporate America, I started to go, I went to Peru. I was seeking this thing outside of myself. I'm like trying to find this answer, right? And some of the greatest people, I always talk about you and the gentleman named Chase, Peru. And the greatest coaches only ask questions, right? You never tell me the answer. It's like asking questions, like the whole thing where I talk about it on many podcasts now about who is God, right? Who is God? And you know who God is, right? Who is God? You know who God is. Let me ask you a question. How does God know that he, whatever you want to consider it, is perfect? And I was like, wow. And so I've adopted this mentality over the last, specifically since that conversation, but over the last year, of unconditional love, right? It really not having expectations of anybody else but myself, and having good intentions, and seeing everybody as made in the likeness and image of God. And if I saw God face to face, like Jacob did, like Moses saw his back, I guess somebody argued with me, they saw his back, he saw him pretty damn close. And so if I saw God face to face, which if I'm staring at a creation made in the likeness image, which is Matt from Team Psycosmos, how would I show up? And so I've started to show up and like, wow, what would I do? I would be humbled. I would be full of love and full of joy to ever meet God face to face. So what if we are God experiencing imperfection? As you said, it was just a question. It wasn't an answer for me. It was like the question, what if we are God experiencing imperfection? So I've gone through this process that you've taught me at a very deep level, and I've taken it very serious over the last year. A process, Jesus died at 33 years old. We have 33 vertebrae in our spine. You have the vagus nerve, which is a cross, looks like a cross, right? You have this Christos process that happens in your body. And I have been following this, and I found it when I was ready, because I don't think I could have accepted this 2 to 3 years ago with the limited understanding I had. I was getting into Christianity and God, and I love Jesus. And that's what I love about you. We both love Jesus with all our heart. We love God with all our heart. We're not here to judge other people. We're here just to share our story. And, our crusade is to wake people up to how loved they are and how amazing they are and how great this life can be. Right. And so you got me on this path of a sacred secretion process. And as I've gone deeper, now I'm starting to understand I'm just a human. I'm a hue of light. There's a spectrum that I'm starting to experience that is opening up radically as I've been going through this process. And so as I started the conversation, my sacred secretion process is actually on Monday during the eclipse. And I know Jim Carrey exposed it to the world for, if you saw that video where he exposed it and people were like, whoa, but it's almost so hard to conceptualize because we've been taught to be so external. And that's where I started to believe that Christ isn't, Christ is like, hey, I'm right here. I've always been with you, and I've given you the greatest secret, the representation of my story, of the embodiment of me forgiving you for you know not what you do, right? And all these things just came to light. And so as I've gone through this process, all I can say is from my living experience, we're coming up on a year, man. Holy shoot. That's crazy. It's been almost a year. It was right after I tore my quad. May 16th will be a year since we started this relationship. And I'm like, all I can say is that the more I read and the more I study and the more I practice this, the more information I'm being exposed to. And I realize the more I do this, the less I know. And the more I don't know, the smarter I become, if that makes any sense. So what is, in a simplistic form, in the best way you can explain it in a basic form for everybody to understand it, what is the sacred secretion process?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so I'm not going to really get into too heavily on like the anatomy and all that because that's important, but it's not as important as understanding the high level, right? Because this is how we change people's minds about the way that they've been seeing things their whole life. The sacred secretion process is a biological process within the body, but it's also an astrological process, and it is a process in everything that we see of evolution, transformation, and healing. It is when the body undergoes a healing process. That is what it means to us. Astrologically, it would be like this solar eclipse. And even on a higher level, it is the relationship that God has with everything that is below him. So it is the rebirth of the cycle. So even if you understand that Jesus was the King of the Jews, and the word Jew comes from Jubilee, at least from the Greek sense or the Latin sense, I'm pretty sure. And what it really means is a circle. So the plains of Galilee, also a circle. The wheel of Buddha, also a circle. What it's talking about is infinity. It's talking about a cycle. The sun comes up over the horizon, it sets. You wake up, you go to bed. Our entire being is cycles. Even when we started out as life, when your father's sperm hit your mother's egg, it is two things becoming one, and it starts as a circle. Wow. You start as a circle. It might be a little controversial to say, but you start as a circle.
You do. Yep.
You do that because that's where the soul energy begins. The energy within the body, the energy within fruit or a tree, it is known as a toroidal field. It's a cycle. It's a circle. And the way that life has to function in order for it to continue to perpetuate itself, in order for us to evolve, even DNA, it's spiral in nature, right? Which is it is really cyclical. It's cyclical. Yeah. The caduceus, the twin snakes wrapped up with the wings at the top. It's all spiral, cyclical, circular. There's so many things that go into that, but the sacred secretion process in your body, what does it mean to you, is mastering the body's cycle. Understanding the ebbs and flows that occur biologically and biochemically so that you can better resonate at a much higher frequency, or what a lot of people are saying, at a higher vibration, so that you can connect and tap in with source, and you can also live your life in the best possible way, in the healthiest way. And by health, I mean in every regard. Yeah. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, getting your desires right, getting your energy right, getting the emotions right. All of that is so crucial, important to what it means to be a human being. And it is living in tandem with the cycles of nature, what God has set in motion, so that you can be the best version of yourself. So there's a lot of stuff, people talking about this and this and this, and Kundalini awakening and the Christos, and all the different variations in form. The cup runneth over, the land of milk and honey, the Ark of the Covenant, the Soma, the Prana, the Chi, the Nadon. These are all different terms. The Philosopher's Stone, the alchemical marriage, the bread and the wine. It's two aspects being conjoined It is a divine union in the body. Your body does this automatically, and probably everybody watching this has already done this automatically time and time again
Yep.
throughout their lives. But it's living in accordance with the cycles of God, so that you can better become the best version of yourself and the best person that you can be. That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
It's beautiful, making the complex simple. It's not that complex. When you start to dive into it, that's what I love about it. I dove into it and it seemed very complex, right? It's like, oh my gosh, you got to be a scientist to almost understand what's happening within your body. And then it's like, be a good person, man.
Yeah.
like
Yep.
be a good human. You know, when it comes around that cycle time, maybe fast a little bit. And that's what I love about you too. It's not like I'll give an example, a couple things. You know, I am an extremist in everything I do. So when I dive into something, I go all in head first, right? And so I get really caught up in the intricate details. Am I doing it correctly? Am I doing this? Like, for example, one time when I woke up in the middle of the night, I think I texted you really early. I was like, dude, am I praying incorrectly? Because I was studying names and Jesus is his name. It's Yeshua. And you're like, JV, what are your intentions, man? Like when you pray, what are your intentions? I'm like, for love of humanity, dude, of creation, of thanking God for the day. And you're like, if it's Frank, Bob, Susie, it's your intentions of your heart. God sees your heart. It's not the name you're using. The name is something that's created by man. It's like, it's a vibrational frequency. So if I say Jesus Christ and I believe he is the risen king, then that's the intention. Then that's what I believe. It doesn't matter what name was made up or what it was or what it's your, what I've learned from you. It's your intentions of your heart. Right. So like the word fuck versus flower, it's a different word, right? It's just a vibrational frequency. And it goes back to so simplistically just being a good person, man. And like if everybody just started to, I call it the 3 rules that I live by: love God with all your heart, love humanity as you love God, treat others as you want to be treated, and pull the log out of your eye before you pull the straw out of others. If we all lived by that, I mean, this world would radically transform. But knowing that we can't have expectations that everybody's going to do that, right? But you can have expectations of yourself. And as I always say, get your shit together on a daily basis and do your things. And so I want to share something before we drop off. Is I've been doing this test, and I shared it with you, very personal right away, because and I encourage everybody to do this, except watch our stuff. No, I was kidding. But and in regards to, so the basically last 13 days, I've been on this quest of posting and ghosting, right? So I realized that social media was actually affecting my mental health. It was actually absolutely, you know, I do, you know, the cold water therapy, HIIT training, I do fasting, I do all these things. I could do better on my nutrition, but I fast every single day, eat about 1 to 2 meals a day. A spiritual walk. I've been studying. You have me doing all my practices, and but I noticed that as my freedom of time to be with my children, I started to scroll aimlessly on social. It was like almost an addictive behavior. And I noticed my frequency was changing. My vibration was actually changing because of the scrolling through social. And so this is day 13. I literally completely, so I just post and I ghost. I don't read comments. I don't go on social. I don't do any social at all. And I filled up all that time with more spiritual work. With my daughter and I have been going on a 3-mile walk every single night. We go to the park every single night. If my son's here with us, we go to the park. And we've been spending time in nature. And I'm not even, I mean, I pick up my phone because you're so used to picking it up, but I put it right back down. And I'll tell you what, man, my dreams have been phenomenal. I'm I'm in a pretty positive guy, but I've been really positive. I noticed that wave of energy is kind of like, it's really balanced. It feels very, very balanced. And so what I encourage everybody, I brought this up because maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, try to just decompress from social, try to decompress from eating a bunch of junk food. Maybe, like you said, not recommendations or health recommendations, but, you know, fast, drink some water, or at least fast half the day. And what if we all, you know, all 20 of us, and there'll probably be a couple hundred people that watch this, and hopefully thousands in the future, where let's just be good people, man. Just relax, chill out. And that's, I think what I've learned from you is we got to stop making the simple so complex. And I believe that's the trick that's been played on us. They make it so complex. There's all these, because I feel the love of Jesus Christ. I call him Christ Jesus. I feel the love of Christ Jesus. I feel the love of God. And since I've started this process, what's changed for me is I have a relationship with God. A relationship. Like I talk to God, I communicate with God, I feel God's presence, I feel it in nature, I feel it with my kids, I feel it in and I really believe, in my opinion, that Jesus coming. I love Jesus, man. He's He's a undefeated, man, 0-sum game. He comes back on a donkey, man. I'm like, what? He's the top G, man. I mean, like, that's the top. He comes back on a donkey with Birkenstocks and a sheet wrapped around him. He's like, man, yo, I've been gone for 18 years and you all are tripping, man. He comes back and he picks people like me as disciples, dude. Jacked up people like 17 years ago. I was a mess, dude. And he picks undisciplined people. Because why wouldn't, I'm going to go on a rabbit hole. Like, why wouldn't he go pick theologians, pastors, deacons? But he went and picked broken people. He was like, hey, the more broken you are, the better this could work out. And he took them from the lowest level of consciousness and ascended them into discipline where they became disciples. Then they became disciples. He's like, hey, now you go heal people. I mean, it's like really just take that story right there where he takes undisciplined people and makes them disciples. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And so like, that's simplistically, that's what I've been doing. I've been really focused on what I'm a disciple of, which to me means discipline. So if I'm a disciple of reading the Bible and studying the book Psycosmos and studying all the things I need to do, writing down my goals, a disciple being present with my kids, having good intentions, all else is irrelevant. And that's where faith and knowing comes in for me. It's like I have the faith and now knowing that all things are working for me and not against me. And so hopefully you guys can see through this process that we're trying to make this, for me, you're, to me, one of the smart, where me and Brenda were talking about this, just one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. I mean, if you guys ever get a chance to sit with Matt, just his brain is like, it's prophetic, man. In my opinion, it's prophetic, man. And so, and I'm the practical application guy. I'm the meathead that's out there applying this stuff. And I'm seeing, all I can tell people when people come at me for my belief system, I'm like, I just look at them. I say, why do you believe what you believe? I know I believe what I believe because I'm practically applying the Bible as a living organism to my life. And it is radically transforming my life, And that's only thing I can do is a witness account of what's happening within my life, not from what somebody taught me, not even what you just asked me questions.
Yeah.
You're like, well, what do you think, JB? You're not my God. You don't act as my God. You're like, I'm not your God. I'm a guy who's studying. You always say, I'm an orphan, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, you always say that to me. I'm an orphan, man. I'm like, man, aren't we all, man? Aren't we all? Like, it's such an interesting dynamic. So we're going to continue these conversations every month. I just want to end with an attitude of gratitude, say thank you for all the work you and your team have put in, the countless hours of studying and the continued education, which is awesome. And as we continue these conversations, I want to make sure people know we're not trying to create a belief. We're not trying to make you to believe something. We're trying to get you to believe in yourself and the possibilities for you. I truly believe that all things are possible for humanity. And I believe that because I went from drug addict 17 years ago, committing suicide, to, and somebody brought something up. They said, why do you say committed suicide? That guy died. He's gone. John Boscus is gone. That's why I call myself JB. To a rebirth, to an awakening process, to remember who I am. And I am powerful. I am strong. I am worthy. I am abundant. As he told Moses, the great I am. Right. And so what I put behind the words I am becomes my truth. And, maybe we'll dive deeper into that. I'll give us a little segue into the next one, the great I am, the pineal gland, all these different things. And I would like to talk next month about, the Bible as a living organism and how we can apply it to our lives. So any last words or parting words for everybody?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much for your support and all the love and good graces, and lock in that really positive energy. And one final thing I also want to say, I love what you said, because this will be a great segue into the next one. I love what you said about why would God choose somebody like me? The one caveat, this is going to be a great segue.
Yeah.
How much does somebody suffer?
Wow.
The suffering, he watched his son suffer. The suffering and the sacrifices that you're willing to make, even if you have sacrificed and suffered so much that you turn to something like drugs or something. All of us who are trying our best to spread the love of God to get everybody else to better themselves, we've hit rock bottom more than other people have. That's why when you hit rock bottom, real rock bottom, God will look onto you because the light shines brightest in the darkness.
Love it. Just like the slingshot, baby. That was a great way to segue into the next one. We'll talk about that. So we love you guys. We will appreciate you guys. Go out there and let's make it a great couple 4 days. Remember, this is April 4th, 2024. We're just documenting our journey to awakening and getting back to remembering who we are. Warriors, Rise, get your shit together. We'll see you guys soon.